From the Motor Plumber Aquatic Center in Tempe, Arizona, day number 2 of opening weekend for Sun Devil Swim and Dive continues. It is the second matchup in as many days between Arizona State and Georgia. Welcome on into the broadcast. Whole cast and crew of characters with Jaden Taylor to my right. I'm Aiden Blanc. Good to be with you. Jaden, the temperatures dropped a little bit, much more comfortable temperatures and a lot more comfortable conditions. We no longer go with the Olympic distance. We go with what the majority of the rest of the meets will be for these swimmers in the 25 yards.
Yeah, of course, same time as last year. They started off yesterday with the 15-meter course, the true LCM style course you'll be seeing through the entirety of World Championships as well as Olympic competition. Bob Bowman starts it off with the second straight year up against Georgia with that style. And this year helps out Bowman and his crew. He's on the men's side, a little bit different for the women's side on their end. But now we get to truly what it's going to look like for 95% of dual as well as championship meets that you're going to be seeing here in college swimming. And I think this group coming out here in day 2, a little bit different look, but again, you have a lot quicker flips. You got a lot quicker and more paced races that I think you're going to be having here. Again, when you're going the entire across of this entire pool, it's hard to be able to adjust a little bit more, having to deal with your breath a little bit quicker, but here with the yardage, actual swims can be a little bit quicker at a pace to be able to deal with.
On day 1, we didn't see a lot of competition in terms of scoring. As expected, the ASU men number 1 in the country, and they showed us why. And a big part of that victory, as will be every part of their victory this season, is Leon Marchand. Dude just dominated. He ran in a couple of races, none of them particularly close, and ended up being one of the big difference makers for the top-ranked Sun Devils.
Yeah, again, Leon Marchand continues to dominate. 3 different events he was a part of yesterday, won every single one of them. He had on a relay as well for him. I think the top time to look at was the 200-meter IM, 157.76 for Leon Marchand. And, of course, that was the same race that he was able to take one of his 3 World Championship golds out there in Fukuoka, Japan in late July. And I think we're going to see him here today in the 200-yard IM as well. So it'll be fun to see how he can differentiate a little bit of a different look here in college swimming.
We will see him twice in events number 10 and 30. So in the beginning of the meet and towards the end of the meet. But first up, it is the 200-yard medley relay. On the women's side, ASU taking lanes 2, 4, 6, and 8 respectively. And we are off, as we mentioned, 25 yards, about half the pool being used today. That is what the majority of these swimmers are used to. Georgia women able to pull across, Jaden. Yesterday it wasn't a fairly close meet. The ASU women split this meet last year. They're looking to do the same again.
Yeah, trying to find something here in day number 2. It was a solid weekend out there in Athens, Georgia a year ago. I think we got this group together who are going to be the top dogs legitimately with this Arizona State group. But here today, why is them starting off with the medley relay, trying to see the depth and get everybody on more brisk pace getting in?
Lane 1 is ASU. Right now, that's Emma Gellert swimming for the Sun Devils. We go into the 3 spot now. Hannah Holman is in lane 1. Elizabeth Tilt for Georgia, lane 2. Lindsay Looney for ASU in lane 4. Lane 5 is Emma Norton from the Bulldogs. Jade Gursky from ASU in lane 6. Carson Schiller from Georgia in lane 7. And Grace Lindbergh in lane 8, lane 5, and 4, the 2 front runners.
Yeah, 1:16.51 right there for 5, and you get down to the final freestyle here. And Elena Jones, this is where she's going to do her best work.
Elena Jones for Georgia and Erin Milligan for the Devils competing for that top spot. And boy, Jones with a terrific finish to this relay. 1:30. Will be the final time there. Georgia able to take the victory in the opening meet, in the opening event of this meet. 1:38.77 is the final time. As ASU and Georgia go 1 and 2 to start off.
And ASU's A group able to get the 2 at 1:40.25. The biggest thing there, their 3 spot going to Georgia with their B group 1:41.19, just barely able to reach across ASU's B group. And that was the biggest thing that we saw yesterday. and especially for the Georgia women, they would take the top spot. Of course, getting those extra points in the back end is always huge, and it seemed like Georgia would always top out of the 2 or 3 spot to really take a firm control early.
We saw the women's 200 relay. Georgia on the board first in the first place spot. And into the pool we go for the men's 200 medley relay. Georgia's got lanes 1, 3, 5, and 7. ASU in 2, 4, 6, and 8, so a full group. I don't think we saw all 8 lanes used very much yesterday.
Not once. Not once. We had 2 through 7 a couple of times. Not one, full 1 through 8.
8 lanes being used, and we are off. Again, you'll notice it's a lot shorter course. We'll go through it at least a couple of times.
This group here in lane 4, I think, is going to be the most interesting one here for ASU. A group that last year got second overall in the NCAA championships, only behind NC State. Jack Dolan, Leon Marchand, Max McCusker, the only change, who was a senior this past year, now a part of the Sun Devil Aquatics Pro Group, and then Johnny Kulo. Same setup here, but the 3 spots going to change with just the freshman and Ilya Karoon.
We'll see Leon Marchand right now. For the Devils. That ASU relay, you can tell, was just dominated. It's a big part to it. Got them second in the nation last year, the highest finish in program history at the national championships, and that was after their program's first ever Pac-12 title. We go to the final spot. Into the pool for ASU, Johnny Kulo.
Reigning Pac-12 freshman of the year, and you're seeing why. These short courses, he is just going to dominate. The freestyle is going to be his game all year long.
Multiple length lead for Kulo, and he closes it out. ASU wins it at 1:22.79 in lane 4. Georgia going to go a close second. And by close, we mean about 4 seconds behind with 1:26.07 in lane 5. Just so hard to compete with these ASU relays. It's what really is going to help them remain the #1 team in the country this season.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. ASU's B group actually got second there, just behind the top spot, and that depth is going to be big. You take 1, 2 in your relays. Again, those can pile up so much more, right? You get double the actual points that you're going to be having in those actual relays compared to individual events. That's racking it up early. And talk about that B group. Not too shabby themselves. Hubie Cos, the #1. John Hebe, the 2. Alexander Colson, the 3. And then Patrick Salmon, who we saw win a couple of freestyle events yesterday, the anchor of that group. And it's the same thing, again, you have to think about the math a lot. That's what Bob Bowman talked about so much last year. You have a guy like Leon Marchand. You have a guy like Hubie Cos who can go to so many different places, right? But you can only put them in so many. You want to make sure that you can go through the math and see where your team can set yourself best in those big spots. And now you really have 2 different relays that could probably find times if they really wanted to inside the NCAA championships.
Looks like they're just trying to figure out the timing as we get set for event number 3, the women 1,000-yard freestyle. We'll see the 1,000 and the 1,600 today. 1650 rather.
I think just 1,000 today. That was the initial plan.
Just waiting on the swimmers here. Again, the ASU women looking to split this weekend. The ASU men were swept in this meet last year, so they've already improved upon that. Their only dual losses of the season. This is the women 1,000-yard freestyle. Heidi Starkfleet of Georgia in lane 1. ASU has Denise Ertan in lane 2. Abby McCullough from Georgia in lane 3. Catherine Randall from ASU in lane 4. Rachel Stagey is from Georgia in lane 5. Lisa Sulak is in lane 6 with the Devils. Danae Kutsi is in lane 7 for Georgia. And Alex Rona for the Devils in lane 8. And already Georgia trying to take the top 3 spots in this event. it'll be a challenge, but right now, the Bulldogs seem to have at least first and second place locked up.
Yeah, again, a lot of ways to go still, especially with these 1,000-yard freestyles. Different feel, of course, when you get here, and I've always seemed to talk about when you see a lot of swimmers with just this 25-yard course. Again, a lot of these swimmers are used to this from their high school level, same style there at the high school level, and as well for a lot of the different club groups. But again, you are having to turn your head, be able to get yourself a little bit less oriented than you normally would if you're going a true long 50 meters. So a different feel. Again, you're going back and forth a little bit quicker for this entire group. And again, like we said, Georgia yesterday, they had two different events to where they had 1, 2, 3 go all the way through. The question now is ASU killing behind points in those top 3 spots.
Rachel Stagey off to a terrific lead. Junior out of Naperville, Illinois, seems to be the front runner in this event, the 1,000 free. She is 10th in the school record books.
Yeah, we're going to see a really good group on the men's style as well for this 1,000-yard freestyle. You talk about record breaking. You're going to see for Georgia as well, Jake McGahee in that 4 spot, or the 5 spot that we'll see here in a little bit after this one. It's always interesting for me to see, again, the distance lengths of these swimmers. Again, not something that I was ever able to do, to see this type of length. Because you relate a lot of times, you want to say, another piece that's going to bring you that much further, at least when it comes to lung capacity, is going to be, a lot of times, 5K racers in that mindset. But it's a lot different, right? It's a lot different to feel. It's a lot more consistent and planning of your breathing in the entire way, and being able to extend that so long in such a long course. It is definitely a big feat that these two have been showing off.
We mentioned Stagey is right up there in the school record. So is the one that she's competing with right now in lane 3, Abby McCullough. She's 5th in this category in the school record books. So a personal best time in this event last season. Won SEC Women's Swimmer of the Week in November of last year. And right now it's Stagey and McCullough trying to haul some points in for a Georgia team that's already leading by 9 points after event number 1.
And Janae Coetzee is easily in the 3 spot as well. 3:19.77. That's not quite about halfway through there for Stagey, and this has been impressive.
The Georgia women going for the sweep to open up their season. As we mentioned, not a lot of college programs have begun to compete yet.
And don't disrespect Oakland University. A great start. That was not a university I would think would be opening up the NCAA swimming seasons, but Oakland University. Now shout out the Grizzlies.
We love the Grizzlies, but for all intents and purposes, this is the meet to watch early in the season, both on the men's and women's side. Multiple top 25 programs here for the weekend. This was originally scheduled to be an 11 a.m. start. We got the earlier wake-up call today, so Georgia can get out of here and back to Athens. Their next meet, a rivalry against Georgia Tech, coming up in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's complaining. That's about a couple hours earlier, especially with right now the cloud cover here today was about 95. We got up to about 98, 100 out here, which isn't even that bad compared to what we've been seeing out here as of recent. But definitely a different feel. Able to kind of cool yourselves down a little bit, feel a little more comfortable. Early wake-up call, so you got to get bright up and early to get ready to go. And I think it's very much so needed, especially for two programs that are starting to really kick off their seasons.
Danae Coetzee has opened up 3rd place in this race. Georgia now with the top 3 spots in lane 7, 5, and 3, respectively. They're looking for a near clean sweep on the podium in this event. ASU just unable to keep up with this 3-headed monster that has carried Georgia in the women's 1,000 free.
I've been surprised that we have not seen too much of Molly Batchelor. Again, the somewhat top time that we've seen for ASU over there in lane number 4, but she has not kept up with the rest of this group.
Danae Coetzee moving into 3rd. She was a first-team All-American last year. Well, mainly she's known for her performance in the 500 free. She's out of Pretoria, South Africa. We had talked about the ASU men. Bob Bowman trying to recruit a little bit internationally. This Georgia team has a little bit of international blood as well.
Yeah, and that's where you're really growing. I think college swimming a lot is where they're going. They've been going for a number of years, right? You are trying to build, again, the next set of men and women that will be finding themselves in the Olympics and trying to win Olympic gold or find themselves back on that podium. And again, it's kind of fun to be able to watch these and sit here and see the immense talent that's coming through here. And we talked about Leon Marchand. It is an absolute gift just to be able to sit here and watch what he's been able to do. Again, Lindsay Looney's going to be competing for the U.S. national team. Even the club swimmers that are going to be out here that we saw a little bit yesterday in the Blakes, right? There's so much talent that you're seeing just at a collegiate level that I don't think a lot of people truly understand. But again, a guy who really does understand getting to that level, a lot of the other coaches here in the Pac-12, Bob Bowman and Dane Durden out there at Cal, both feel that same thing, right? They both understand what it takes to become and really create what is a great Olympic swimmer.
Georgia's still with all three the top spots in this race as we move down the stretch. The women's 1,000 free, the third event of the day, the second on the women's side. Georgia able to take both 1 and 2 in the first women's event of the day. Danae Coetzee has moved into the lead by a short length, but Georgia's still dominating lanes 7, 5, and 3. Coetzee and her teammates Stagey and McCullough carrying the Bulldogs. Right now, you're getting points for the top 4 in this race, and while the Bulldogs look to take at least 3 of those spots. At this point, Georgia women's swimming, we mentioned they're going to host the national championships later this year. That is, throughout the season, going to be in the back of everybody's mind. If you can swim well enough, you get to swim the national championships at home. That's kind of the dream for every collegiate swimmer.
Yeah, that was fun last year, kind of seeing it up in Minneapolis, as well as up there as well, to see kind of the home core out there, being able to watch on their swimmers. Again, those events are packed every single year, and especially out there last year in Minneapolis, to where it was in an indoor facility, of course, that late into the year. It is such an area to where you get the cacophony that comes in there with so many fans yelling, screaming. It's an atmosphere that is just unlike any other that you're going to see in other sports, right? You go to a college football match that's in that bigger area, the bigger setting, even outdoor or indoor, right? You kind of have that expectation. When you go to one of those swimming events that are that large and that just die-hard fan base that gets in there to support, and again, your entire team is behind you, supporting you each and every single meet, it's something that I honestly relate a lot of times even to high school meets at times. You are within that group, you are within that team in so much regard that you are just out there from 8 a.m. all the way to the end of the day competing for that group and competing for a chance to win a gold medal.
Down the stretch we go, just under 10 minutes gone by in this women's 1,000 free. I think Athens in March a little bit nicer than Minneapolis in March.
Yes, not as cold outside.
Bulldogs will take first, second, and now third place, and not particularly close in this meet either. The finish will go Coetzee 1, Stagey 2, and McCullough 3, as the Bulldogs take 3 of the top 4 spots in this podium. ASU will win the points for the 4th spot with Denise Orton, but just not a strong showing for the Sun Devil women in this race. You gotta have a lot of stamina to compete in it, but ASU just unable to keep up with this dominating Georgia women's program.
Yeah, no points. That's the simplest way to say it. Again, Georgia, we talked about the end of last year, 13th ranked team in the country, came into the SEC championships with some hopes. Ended up being 6th, ended up ending off the entirety of the year at 16th at the NCAA championships. I think this is another group that will find themselves, again, I think somewhere in the top 25 consistently this year on the women's side.
We just saw the women go for 1,000 yards freestyle. Here come the men. Waste no time getting underway. Ryan King from ASU in lane 1, Jake Mason from ASU in lane 2, Tristan Denbrock from Georgia in lane 3, Daniel Matheson in lane 4 from ASU, Georgia's Jake McGahee in lane 5, Sterling Gravely from ASU in lane 6, Sam Powell from Georgia in lane 7, and Evan Nail from the Devils in lane 8. You'll notice ASU has lane 1 as well, so they have the extra swimmer. I guess mathematically an advantage in this race.
Yeah, overall, again, your biggest matchup there is going to be in the middle, as it is always. Seeing Daniel Matheson is going to be big. Jake McGahee is going to be fun. We'll talk a little more about Dylan Gravely, but another guy that is going to be an open swimmer for the U.S. national team.
Jake McGahee, one of the Georgia natives, a senior out of Decorah, holds the score record in this event, as well as the 800 freestyle relay. He's also number 2 in the 500 freestyle and the 1650 freestyle. Finished 3rd in those 2 events at the NCAA championships last year. As we mentioned yesterday, won a gold medal in the 4x200 freestyle relay at the FINA Short Course World Championships in 2022. He is obviously one of the favorites in this event, not just today, but anytime he hits the pool to swim 1,000 yards freestyle, and later on this season at the SEC and the national championships.
Yeah, McGahee was really fun to watch yesterday in a couple events that we saw from him last year. Again, these longer courses are going to be the biggest piece for him, as well as these Georgia Bulldogs. 2 overall teams that I would say lack true depth in the overall positioning of these longer races that you're going to see the kind of more extension of your abilities overall. We saw Zalon Sarkani last year, who was huge in the second half of the season for ASU. Going to come back this year, but again, same kind of style. Come back just about in the spring once ASU is entirely on the road. A lot more deeper of competition when ASU men's get on the road, taking on Cal, Stanford, USC. I think where the testing point again was last year will be that North Carolina State invite that they'll head out to in mid-November to really see where they can compete on a bigger level. Right? A dual meet is very different in style to what you're going to see at those actual invites. The points, the math, how you're going to be setting up your swimmers is a whole different feel than it is just in a 1v1 type style like this.
You can already tell this race a lot closer than the women's. ASU should be able to at least get some points from it.
Yeah, pretty incredible. Jake Mason in the top spot right now, 2:44.59 in lane 2 here for ASU. And we're talking about, again, the depth is kind of growing for this spot for ASU. I think that was an acknowledgement last year, seeing Zalon Sarkani of what he brought with a couple of incredible times. ASU's top time overall last year, ASU versus Arizona. Sarkani an 8:49.31 in this event, but it was just about a month removed where he went back-to-back 2 straight days. His first 2 days here at ASU in actual events. He took the top 2 spots in program history. An incredible 8 minutes, 50 seconds up against Stanford, and then just a day later, right? Just a day later having to come back in such a this long event, 8:52.5 up against Cal, which really, I think, set the tone for what that Cal meet was going to be, which is, I think, really the propeller to Arizona State truly being the top dog in the back half of the year.
Really quickly for the women, Georgia wins 9 points for Coetzee, 4 for Stagey, 3 for McCullough, and ASU will get 3 points from that race. Orton wins 2 and Reyna wins 1, so the Devils now trail by 22 points, down very early in the women's, but the men, we are expecting a pretty close match today. It was certainly the closer of the 2 yesterday. The Sun Devils still the #1 program in the nation. Won every dual meet they had last year with the exception of this one, so obviously if you can win these 2, they've won 1 already. That's a very good start. towards one of those big goals of going undefeated in the duels, and then it comes to winning another Pac-12 title, and then eventually climbing that mountain and jumping up a spot and winning the NCAA championships for the first time in school history.
That'll be fun. And again, no team outside of Texas or Cal has won the men's championship since 2013. A Michigan squad out there finally able to poke through. And overall, again, you look at swimming, you look at the top programs, and you look at, if you want to do a football tournament, Alabama and Georgia, it's going to be Cal and Texas each and every single year. They have neither of them have been one or two back since 2007. They have been one or two. One of those two squads have been either the champion or the runner-up in men's swimming all the way since 2007. And again, the dominance that they have produced, again, has been by two different Olympic-style coaches. And Jaden over there at Cal. You come here to ASU and what Bob Bowman has brought to this group. Really all started back in 2020 with what seemed like an odd move to a lot of the swimming world. This team and Bob Bowman redshirted his entire group to give them an extra year of eligibility. There was a lot of concerns of how everything would work, how even meets would happen, if they would happen throughout that time. And Bowman decided we're just going to lock up. We're going to give everybody another year. We're truly just going to swim as a club team that entire year, which allows that ability. You have the Sunbelt Aquatics team here for that club/pro group that you're able to swim here. So you're just going against the clock, which is the same time you're doing anywhere else, but not really propelled. This group had a lot more depth. They got a lot better in recruiting. They brought in a guy like Leon Marchand, a lot more international times that they're bringing in. It will help them propel to, as you mentioned, what could be their first ever NCAA championship.
Sam Powell, your leader right now in the men's 1,000 free, 6:25.64. He's just going to turn again and continue to dominate in this race. He's really pulled ahead nearly by a full length. The Chattanooga, Tennessee sophomore made a big impact on this team last year. Won a dual meet for them in the 200 IM against Emory. He's the co-freshman of the week in the SEC back in January of this year. Had a great freshman campaign and now looking to build on that. And this is a very, very impressive race so far. A lot of ways still to go. But he is far ahead, crossing now at 7:20. Jake McGahee right behind him at 7:22.62. That is the second best time. The Bulldogs have a chance to take 1 and 2 on this podium. Would certainly really help them in points to try and keep up with the Devils. Guys like Marchand almost guaranteed to win them a race. You really need to make sure that you perform as well as possible when he's out of the pool.
Yeah, you mentioned, as tight a race this is, 3 even times, 7:47.28. McGahee, Denbrock, as well as Mason, all even right now. And again, it's natural to find a little more distance in a race like this that has so much distance between the entire race. This is incredible. Seeing this time of the race between 3 or 4 swimmers that are all locked up right now.
ASU, their bench trying to rally the troops. They have fallen behind in this men's race. Just trying to battle for second at this point. Everybody's trying to keep up with Sam Powell, and it's undoable. 8.5 minutes into the race. And Sam Powell has just dominated this field onto his last lap. In lane 5, you get McGahee onto his last lap as well. Neck and neck, second place with Devils and Daniel Matheson. Can ASU take second? Let's see. Final split. McGahee should pull away with this thing, and he will. Georgia goes 1 and 2 in the men's 1,000 free. Jake McGahee leads the pack at 9:08.45. I beg your pardon, he comes in second at 9:08.45. Sam Powell leads the pack at 9:06.93. Just a terrific swim by him, wins by about 2 seconds. And the Bulldogs with a statement victory there. They'll get a good portion of points. They try and get a little bit closer, close that gap on the second event of the day.
Yeah, the top 13 points, the biggest thing, right? You see that drop up. That top spot gets 9, second spot gets 4, and you go all the way down 9, 4, 3, 2, 1 throughout your top competitors in each of these singular events. But overall, I think the two strongest points you're going to see with Georgia comparatively to ASU here today, the backstroke events you're going to be seeing for Georgia, as well as these long distance events. Hopefully you're going to see Jake McGahee later again in another 500 freestyle. Like already a two-time All-American as of last year, and you're going to add in a really good backstroke group, and it was the champion last year in Bradley Dunham, as well as an NCAA qualifier in Mitchell Norton. So if Georgia's going to find some extra time, he's going to find some breathing room for what is already, again, a very dominant and deep ASU team, those are going to be the events that they have to be able to take the top 2 spots.
Yeah, believe it or not, that's not the last event we're going to see McGahee in. He finished third in the NCAAs last year in the 500 free and the 1650 free. We'll see him a little bit later in the 500. Just a terrific showing from Georgia, taking 2 of those top 3 spots. And we are off in the 200 free. So we looked at the distance a little bit. Now let's go a little bit shorter. In the 200 free, it's Shea First from Georgia in lane 1, Ellie Strom in lane 2, Jillian Barshik, Georgia in lane 3, Molly Batchelor in lane 4 for the Devils. Bulldogs have Sloan Weinstein in lane 5, Eva Maluka for the Devils in lane 6, Helena Jones for Georgia in lane 7, Sonia Vaishnani for the Devils in lane 8. Both the thousands down. Again, we're swimming on the normal college distance pool here at 50 yards, or rather 25 yards. We had the Olympic size yesterday. Neck and neck early on in this race. Middle lanes obviously doing most of the heavy lifting. ASU in the even lanes here, 2, 4, 6, and 8. Georgia in 1, 3, 5, and 7. Those outside lanes struggling to keep up, but so far, middle lanes taking it. Sloan Weinstein, the leader in that middle lane at 1:19.14 on the last turn. Still a lot of time for ASU to try and catch up. Crucial they gain some points here if they want any chance at keeping this thing close. Top 2 finishers, Helena Jones at 1:46.43, but she's unable to beat Sloan Weinstein at 1:46.35. And Georgia wins another event.
And they go top 3. Yeah, Jillian Barczyk. Again, we've seen back-to-back events now, and that Georgia has taken the top 3 spots. We only saw 2 of those yesterday. Again, it was mainly Georgia 1, 2, maybe a 4 in there as well. But it's been a dominant start for a team again that ended up the year top 15 out there in the actual rankings before getting 16th in the NCAA championships. But a group again under a second-year head coach that very well could compete at the top in the SEC.
We mentioned it yesterday, Stephanie Williams Moreno, her second season, a 28-time All-American and a 4-time national champion with the Bulldogs, has come back, and in her second season leading the team, hopes to take that step just outside the top 10 last year. Would love to finish in the top 10 this year at home in the national championships. So on the women on the 200 free, let's go to the men on the 200 free. ASU in lanes 2, 4, 6, and 8 with Tiago Behar in lane 2, Patrick Seaman in lane 4, Julian Hill in lane 6, and Leo Roden in lane 8. Lanes 1, 3, 5, and 7 for the Bulldogs. Reese Burns out in lane 1, Roman Valdez in 3, Jake McGahee back again in lane 5, and Thomas Koski in lane 7.
Yeah, it's obvious right now, McGahee definitely a little restrained from that 1,000-yard freestyle. I'm going to be thrown back out here for such a quick turnaround. And that was interesting talking yesterday to a couple of teams that had seen themselves at the World Championships because Leon Marchand, a couple of the other swimmers that got out there, right? Your setup especially the World Championships, you were maybe doing 2 swims a day. And you do prelims one day, you come back maybe either later that night for another event, but it is not the same style to where you were doing 4, maybe sometimes 5 events, including, 3, maybe 4 events, including relays, in just maybe a 4-hour time span.
Currently 19-17 in favor of the Devils on the men's side. So we have a 2-point match right now. Every time is going to be crucial. Devils are going to win this one handily. A 134.96 in lane 4. Just terrific swimming from Patrick Salmon.
Right after, we talk about the Georgia taking the top 3 spots. ASU on the other end does the same. We see Salmon 134.96 in the 1. Julian Hill, another veteran returner, coming back 135.13, and then Tiago Behar able to work again. Another younger guy that is going to help out with the depth for Bob Bowman's squad.
So ASU will expand that lead that was down to just 2 points after 3 events on the men's side today. Into the pool we go. And we're up to the 100 backstroke, the women's side of this event. 100 yards. And they're off. ASU taking 2, 4, 6, and 8. Georgia 1, 3, 5, and 7. The middle matchup here, Charlie Brown for the Devils and Ebony McCarty for Georgia. And we saw some good swimming yesterday from Billy Samson in lane 3. Don't be surprised if she starts to make a move. One of the lanes closer to you on the screen.
I keep looking again, Brown in the middle of your screen, sophomore from Sydney, Australia. They really do well in the NCAA championships. Competed in the 200 back, did not place in that same event. One of 3 different ASU swimmers that found a way into the NCAA championships alongside Lindsay Looney as well as Molly Batchelor. Biggest thing for her though was also able to get 14th in the 400 IM and 200 back.
Ebony McCarty wins for the Bulldogs at 52.6. And they're going to expand Georgia will a 35-point lead going into that event. It'll go well over 40 by the end of it. Just a rout early on the women's side, but the men's side still just a 15-point difference. Georgia has a chance to make it even closer right now.
ASU able to take number 2 in that spot, but again, Georgia able to take the 3rd spot as well. So again, you're stacking up points consistently, especially in these dual meets that kind of get extended a little bit longer throughout the day, but fun to be able to watch this far.
ASU was able to get 16 points on the 200 free for the men. That really opened things up. Just 3 on the opposite end for Georgia, placing 4th and 5th. And we'll go to the 100-yard backstroke for the men. ASU in the even lanes all day, Georgia in the odds. Hubert Koss for the Devils in lane 4, and Ruben Van Rennen in lane 5 for Georgia.
Yeah, Koss is going to be the one to watch for, especially in those middle names. And a sophomore from Hungary was dominant last year. Able to maybe find the top spot in the backstroke this year. The current ASU record still back in 2020, but him as well as Owen McDonald have kind of been the 2 guys that have the top men in the backstroke, and of course you can't really talk even about anything else in part of this team, not mentioning Leon Marchand. 44.77, the top spot last year, but 5 of the overall top 6 times in the backstroke for overall this program came back in 2023, came this past year for this group. And I think it's somewhat to be expected with, again, this group continuing to grow, getting better and better each and every single year. You've seen it in the overall results, but it's been interesting to see. You go through the actual leaderboards, and you go throughout this summer when this entire thing was changed. I mean, it's becoming a nuisance at times just see how many times the record books are changing each and every single meet.
59-15 in favor of Georgia on the women's side, but only 35-20 in favor of ASU on the men's side. Into the pool we go, the 100 back. Those middle lanes, as usual, the lanes to watch. Lane 4 for ASU, Hubert Koss. And Ruud Van Rennen in lane 5 for the Bulldogs.
Yeah, Owen McDonald is really going to look in for ASU in lane 2. He's the only man a part of this group that was in the same event last year when they faced up against Georgia. 48.48 in that one. He's dropped down his overall time another 2 seconds, 46.05 of that one. But ASU overall had a pair of swimmers that found their way into the NCAA championships in this same event. Jack Dolan, as well as Owen McDonald, as we mentioned, we're seeing here today.
A very close event early on. Bulldogs controlling on those outside lanes. Lanes 5 and 7. Rennen and Dunham carrying for the Bulldogs. And at the end of the day, it'll be lane 7 and Dunham who takes it 45.56. Van Rennen just behind him at 45.94. So again, Georgia able to counter. They take the top 2 spots on the podium there. And they'll narrow the gap in the scoring.
Yeah, somewhat surprising, honestly, to me, to see both Koss as well as McDonald drop down in that word goal. I wouldn't say bad swims in any way, but again, we talk about the backstroke, the biggest place to where you're seeing gains going to happen here for Georgia early on in this event. I mentioned earlier we're going to see a couple more backstroke events that we'll have here today, and keeping it close, I think that's where Georgia's going to be able to do it.
Back to the women. And now we're up to the breaststroke. 100 yards. No lane 1. So Georgia down a swimmer in this race, but ASU has Ginger McMahon in lane 2, Isa Adame in lane 4, Emma Gellert in lane 6, and Zoe Summer in lane 8. For the Bulldogs, Elizabeth Isaacson out of lane 2, Zoe Hartman in lane 5, and Olivia Delatorre in lane 7. Great swim yesterday for Elizabeth Isaacson, and she's back for more today. Early on that middle lane, having the advantage. Hartman crosses first. It's still a very close race. Hartman trying to open it up in lane number 5. She'll finish atop the leaderboard. Emma Hartman at 101.13. Right behind her, Summer in lane 8 at 101.73.
They're able to pick up something as the biggest in there for ASU. He's a Dame as well in third. Again, this is, on the women's side, again, more of a differentiating point for Georgia up against ASU to see what they've been able to do here today. But again, a lot of race left, a lot of duel left that we're going to be able to see here in this one. So if ASU can creep their way back with a couple of top swims, it would make it definitely more interesting once we get to the bigger relays down the stretch.
Here comes the 100-yard breaststroke. For the men, Leon Marchand back into the pool. His second event of the day. Undefeated so far on the season. Didn't lose a race yesterday. Has not lost a race today. There was a relay. So he only gets partial credit.
And this is his best.
I'm sure his teammates will tell you.
I think anybody will tell you they'll take Leon Marchand on their relay team. I don't think you're going into the backyard or recess and saying, I don't want that guy. I think he's first pick all the way everywhere he wants. And I think the first pick for him is this same event. Top 3 of 4 times overall in ASU history. Top time overall, a 41.01 in the 100-yard breaststroke.
You can tell it. Pure dominance from Leon Marchand in lane 4. The first to cross by a mile, 53.29. His final time. And the Devils will open up what was an 8-point lead going in thanks to their national champion, Leon Marchand.
And Marshawn, another big win. Not quite the top time that he's had still. And we're talking about top time overall for Leon Marshawn. It's still a top time ever in this entire event across here at ASU. So pretty incredible to see Marshawn going through, but still just coming in as really what's a warm-up for him throughout this season.
53-29, the time for Marshawn. Devils will also take second in that race at 54.05. We're 10 events down. And event number 11, the 200-yard butterfly for the women. Mia Abruzzo back for Georgia in lane 5. Lindsay Looney back for ASU in lane 4.
Looney going to be really fun to see. And I think you are expecting, again, your veteran, the senior from Denison, Texas, to really overhaul this group. And the butterfly is going to be one of her best events that you're going to see here. She found her way into the U.S. national team throughout this specific event. 30 on the national team and competed in the same event, 200-meter fly, while it rolls and able to swim at 2:07.70. And you're talking about overall the best event you're going to see from Looney, that she will be in just about every single do of this season. It's going to be this one. Able to find a Pac-12 championship last year.
69-24, the current score in favor of the Bulldogs on the women's end. The ASU has a chance to win their first event of the day here. Up in lane 4, you were talking about Lindsay Looney, and well, right now looks like she might be ASU's best hope to get 9 points out of this.
At a career high. Man, what was a program record-breaking 200 out there in the NCAA championships? 152.25 is the number to look.
Abruzzo and Looney. Neck and neck. Going into the final turns. Looney still a minuscule advantage in lane 4.
It's coming down a little bit quicker. Looney seems to have struggled in the last couple of splits. It looks like Abruzzo might have a chance in this final turn to take the lead.
Haven't seen a lot of photo finishes this weekend. This might be one of them. Abruzzo trying to push through. Get 9 points for the Bulldogs. But Looney looks like she'll hang on, and she will. Looney wins the Devils their first event of the day on the women's side at 156.84. Abruzzo right behind her, 157.55. Abruzzo really came down in the final sprint there, but Looney able to hang on and get 9 points for ASU for the first time today.
Yeah, it seemed like struggling turns. Honestly, we're talking about the winner of this event in Lindsay Looney, but I think definitely one that she'll go back to look at, see what she can do better a little bit as well. But still an incredible event for Looney to be able to take that number 1 spot here for ASU. Really fun to be able to see something a little bit closer. I haven't seen that too much here this entire weekend.
Just saw the women at the 200 butterfly. Here come the men. ASU entered for the women down 59-15. They'll close that gap a little bit. Devils leading by 8 on the men's side, 41-33 entering this race. No lane 1, so Georgia down a swimmer here. Alexander Colson for the Devils in lane 6. And Ilya Karoum, one of the freshmen, in lane number 3. We talked about the depth of this team, and that goes towards the youngsters. Karoum getting a chance to swim here as a freshman.
And here in these 5 events, this is going to be where you're going to see him a lot this year as the Canadian record. And Bowman loves what he can bring here to this team. We talk about the way Zon Sarkani kind of re-changed and not revived the program in the second half, but just made it a spark to where it was, yeah, we think this is the top team in the land, to where we know this is the top team in the land. I really think Karoum can be that difference maker here this season.
Yeah, you can tell they're the top team in the land just by looking at those numbers. Karoum in lane number 4, the freshman, about 3 seconds ahead of everybody else.
Which is pretty incredible, too. You got Alexander Colson in lane 6, who's overall got the program best time last year in the Pac-12 championships here for ASU. 139.55. Going to be the number to watch as we're seeing the final turn here.
Ian Karoum just trying to get second place for the Bulldogs. He makes a good push. And we're on to the final turn. Crib will pull ahead just barely in lane number 5. This is the final sprint. Ilya Karoum with a terrific swim. Bob Bowman going to be smiling ear to ear after that. He wins at 1:40.68. The battle for second will go by just ahead of the Bulldogs as Groom wins with 1:45.05 over Coulson's 1:45.08. Both swam very well, but wow, the freshman, Ilya Karoum, wins by almost 5 full seconds. That's more dominant than even Marshawn was today. That is a terrific swim.
Incredible, and just by that swim alone, again, you talk about the differentiating point. For a lot of these swimmers, right, how do you be in your first year versus your last one? How do you grow? How do you have that extension? How do you find those days and those early 6:30 a.m. practices to get yourself better? And looking at that, so I think that could have been Karoum's best. It was clean. The turns were great. Could have been a little bit more cleaner on the near end on a couple of the ones that he had. But I would be incredibly surprised if ASU even gets out of Mona Plummer within these next month or month and a half without him having the top spot in program history.
And look for him to play a big part down the stretch. Another one of those guys that can hopefully turn into one of those, automatic wins or automatic first or second point getters. The ASU winning a lot of ground to make up here. They did win the last event. But they trust 77-35 entering event number 13. That's the women 50-yard free. Just up and down. This, the true sprint of the day. It's very close at the end, but in lane number 3, it looks like by a hair, Georgia's going to pull it out with Helena Jones. She'll win it at 22.68. That one obviously the closest of the day by design.
And it's always going to be that way. And I think it's always fun to me seeing these type of events, having those later. I like having those later because you're going to have the set of course, your biggest matchups of the day or your final relays that you're going to end off each day with. But having those quickly out there to be fun, kind of a little refresher in the middle of the afternoon.
Now comes the men's version of the 50 free. Jack Dolan for the Devils in lane 4. Dylan Downing in lane 5. And Bruce Blanzel. Those are the two big names for Georgia. It comes in trailing 67-45.
Dolan the big name. An ASU program record. Another one in the Pac-12 championships last year. Dropped down a lot. Was not as impressive as we saw from their main sprinter in the NCAA championships. But 18.86 is the top time ASU program-wise. And Dolan very well going to be looking to retake that new number again.
On to the blocks. Let's go. In the men's 50 free. ASU a comfortable lead on the men's side, looking to grow that right now. Get another 9 points. Final sprint. Devils seem to have it in lanes 4 and 6. And that is how it finishes. Dolan wins it at 19.16 in lane 4. Kulo comes in second at 19.31 in lane 6. Right behind him, Simon in lane 7 at 19.83 and Peel in lane 2 at 19.95. A great race for the Devils. Once again, they're top of the list. They take 1 and 2.
Yeah, this is going to be a spot to where, again, the depth is very big here for these dual meets, to where I think ASU is going to dominate every single dual meet they'll have in the 50 free. The question mark this year, just like it was last year in the 50 and 100, how do you extend that into the national championships, right? You're going to have top 10, you're going to have NCAA qualifiers. How do you get them to being the top 16? That was the question mark last year. You had Johnny Kulo, you had Jack Dolan, able to work themselves up, but Kulo just a 100th of a second off from making the consolation finals, and that wipes away any points that you get in those NCAA championships. So being able to develop more depth for this group is big, but being able to develop competent depth that's going to get them at the toppest of the levels is going to be very big for Bob Bowman this year.
Let's go to event number 17. That is the women's 100-yard freestyle. Sloan Weinstein, one of the favorites for Georgia in lane number 5. senior out of Palo Alto, California. Now we're going to go first with just 3 Devils racing.
Now, looking at a break here before we get to that, I think
you're right.
Going to set up some diving as what they had yesterday, and yeah, so we'll get a quick break to be able to work with. But a dominant start for ASU on the men's side. Again, has kind of edged Georgia out a little bit more as of recent. Again, the women's side on the other end for Georgia looks like to be another clean sweep of a weekend.
Devils swimming a little bit here. During our break, we'll see the 100 free, the 200 backstroke, the 200 breaststroke, the 500 free, and the 100 butterfly in our next segment of events. Then another break, and we'll close out with the 200 IM and the 400 free relay. Through 13 events here, Devils trailing 92-39, a blowout on the women's side, but 67-45. They're starting to pull away on the men's side, obviously much closer as we expected.
Yeah, I think the back half is going to be the difference, Mark. You mentioned coming in the 200 backstroke, you looked there. I think the biggest mark is going to be Georgia in that one. The 500 free is going to be fun. I think we'll love seeing Jack Dolan in those events. We're also going to have a Georgia record breaker in Jake McGahee in that same event later on, who's probably a little bit already tired here today after having to go back to 2 different events in a matter of 3. And then the 200 IM and 400 free relay, that's where ASU just wants to show off. The 400 free relay, of course, the dead sprint going on both ends to end it off, and of course the 200 IM that we're easily going to see Leon Marchand, who is not only the ASU program record breaker, the top time last year in 2023, and the top time overall in the land.
Let's step aside for a few moments. On the other side of this break, more swimming and diving here from the Mona Plummer Aquatic Center. ASU trailing on the women's side, but leading on the men's. More Leon Marchand and the Devils coming up next here on ASU Livestream number 2. back from Tempe, Arizona with Jaden Taylor. Blake Neiman to my left doing some stats today. I'm Aiden Blanc. Good to be with you. We're back underway. And this is the 100 freestyle for the women, Jaden. Everybody gets a chance to rest, and now we get to see one of the more premier events for the women. Sloan Reinstein and Aaron Milligan in the middle lanes for Georgia and ASU, respectively.
Yeah, Aaron Milligan as well in lane 4. Going to be fun to be able to see her here today. That kind of core group, Bachelor, Milligan, as well as Lindsay Looney. I think we're going to see those top 3 very likely push themselves for some top spots inside the Pac-12, as well as the NCAAs later on in March.
Devils and Dogs for the second straight day here at the Mona Plummer Aquatic Center. Number 5, Reinstein has just a touch of a lead, and she will keep it. Only one to finish under 50 at 49-39. Georgia has won all but one event so far. You saw they were pretty dominant yesterday. They're even better today.
Yeah, they've shown out here today in day number 2. Just not quite been the same for ASU thus far. I mean, yesterday it was, okay, they take the top time, maybe 2 or 3 in that setup. This time today, it has been the top 3 spots consistently. Just about every single event, they have been at least 3 or 4 of the top spots.
Let's go to number 18, the 18th event of the day, the men's 100-yard free. Johnny Kulo in lane 4, Reese Branzel, Georgia in lane 5. Seen both of them already.
It's going to be fun to see Kulo. Grant House, the top overall time for ASU. That has not been beaten since 2022. National championships for Grant House. 41-48 the top time. Again, the Pac-12 freshman of the year. For these sprinter events, and Johnny Kulo, I think, is the guy to possibly get it this year.
Kulo leads on that last turn on the outside in lane number 4. And we go into the final stretch. Kulo leading, but just barely. Couple of devs sandwiching that middle lane of hills. That's how it ends. Kulo wins it at 42.73. Dolan right behind him at 42.96. And then Hills in lane 5 gets 43.34 for Georgia to at least get some points there in third, but ASU dominant in another one of those sprinting events. That's one of those really areas where they have excelled, really what pushes them to the number 1 ranking in the nation.
Yeah, they've been so fast on the starting block, right? Being able to work Jack Dolan as well as the top spot there in Johnny Kulo. Kulo is going to be really, really fun to watch. His overall top time, 42.79 from last year. But here in 2023, being able to, again, drop down your time quicker, you're going to have a lot more time to be able to work with really big matchups up in North Carolina State as well as USC later on. So I think Kulo being able to be the guy that he is and how much he's grown just in a year's time can easily take that top spot, at least in program history, if not maybe some top medalist times later on if you can get there.
And the pool for event number 19, the women's 200-yard backstroke. Georgia has surpassed 100 points on the day at triple digits. They lead 108-42. Everybody has to adjust their timers there. Let's go. Another one of those events where we see all 8 lanes used. A full pool for the women's 200 backstroke. ASU in the even lanes. Georgia in the odd. Up the middle, Millie Sansome and Charlie Brown.
I was in this exact same event at the NCAA championships, did not make her way into the Constellation Finals, but it's going to be her top time that she'll have this year.
Sansome, transfer from Iowa back in 2019. This is her 5th year. She's a grad student. Out of Marlow, England, another one of those international recruits for the Bulldogs. Trying to finish her collegiate career on a high note. And so far, she seems to have the lead. Touching down at 57.33 as we go into another turn. ASU right behind with Brown in lane 4. one of the closer races we've seen so far. A minute 15 into the race. And Sansone just building on her lead in lane 5. The experience clearly showing for the Bulldogs.
Yeah, especially with coming into the back half of this dual meet, Georgia's just going to look to continue to add on and just dominate what's already been a great weekend for them. And when we talk about top 15 teams, this seems to be one of them up against an ASU program that finally found their way into the top 25 last year, but struggled to stay in it consistently. And the depth has been an issue, but Georgia has not lacked in that category at all this year.
Sansone and Brown well ahead of the pack. Jillian Barczyk trying to make a push at the end for second, but she'll finish third. So Georgia takes 2 of the top 3 spots, but a good run for Charlie Brown. She'll finish 1:59.14. Sansone, we don't have a time for her yet, but she won the race. I hope. She might still be waiting on her time as well. Georgia will win the 9 points there, regardless of her time. Brown was at 1:59.14, which means Sansone was probably at the 1:58 mark. Her lead kept growing over that race. We'll go to the 200-yard backstroke for the men. Just 1 heat for every event today. Saw a couple with 2 heats yesterday, but we won't get that today. Another one of those events with all 8 swimmers. The 200 back, a very popular event on both ends here.
Yeah, this is going to be an event to where, again, we talk about the competitiveness that this overall duel has had between the men's team. I think this is going to be the biggest one because there's, of course, going to be the top guy over there in the middle lane, in lane number 4, but see how Jack Wadsworth can do. 21-year-old, 1:44.76 is top time, but I think you're very likely to see him grow this year.
In lane 4, the big guy for the Devils is Hubert Cross. He has the lead so far, 22.9 through his first turn on the left side of the pool here.
1:37.96 top time last year. That was in the NCAA championship. Won a gold in this exact same event, the 200-meter backstroke at the World Championships in Fukuoka, Japan. 1:54.14 in that one. And of course, one of the 2 Sun medals to take it there. From Hungary and Leon Marchand as well. 3 different events for Marchand.
Koss and Ian Groom, the 2 far ahead of the pack so far. In the final split, in the 200 backstroke on the men's side. Groom trying to make a final push. As we go into another turn. That turn for Groom at 1:15.46. Koss at 1:15.05.
Koss as well. Especially with that big world championship, really wants to look a little bit better here on the short course. It was the first one from the Hungary since 1975.
Oh, how about this? Groom has taken just a slight lead down the stretch. And Groom's going to touch in first. 1:31.25. Groom able to catch up and pass Koss at 1:41.38.
Yeah, just 13 points of a second there to end it off for Groom. And got somewhat frustrated after ended off that one. Definitely not the expected time, especially with how good he was back in July.
That's a huge 9 points for Georgia to try and climb back into this meet. Groom was behind for almost the entirety of the race. Not by much, but by about half a second. And he wins, as you mentioned, by about 13
hundredths of a second.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the Bulldogs get 9 points there. We're right into the 200 breast for the women. You notice on the men's side, that's another event featuring Marchand. But on the women's side, Zoe Hartman, Emma Gellert in the middle lanes for Georgia and ASU. Elizabeth Isaacson in lane 3 for Georgia. And Ginger McMahon in lane 6 for the Devils. Mia Abruzzo had a good swim to start her day. She's in lane 1. .200 breaststroke for the women. There's two middle lanes once again leading the pack. Hartman and Gellert. In that order, Hartman still just a touch of a lead into the next turn. It is neck and neck between Hartman and Gellert. This thing going to be decided by less than half a second if they can continue at this pace, far ahead of their competitors. A minute 11 into the race. Hartman and Gellert. Hartman a lead just barely, I beg your pardon, Gellert a lead just barely at 1:04.13. Approaching a minute and a half into this race. And in lane 5, it's Zoe Hartman pulling ahead for the Bulldogs. A lot of work for Gellert to try and catch up. Only 2 more leads to the pool to go.
She's been known for a breaststroke. 14th in the 200 breaststroke back in the Pac-12 championships, and this is where she's going to really need to find something quickly down the final turn.
Gellert's got to watch out. She's now got competition for second from Olivia Delatorre trying to catch up in lane 7. Still a little bit behind, but closer than I think anybody expected. There it is. Zoe Hartman touches in first. Gellert will go second. Hartman 2:11.67 and Gellert at 2:15.45 through the first couple of turns. It looked like we may have a race on our hands, but, well, Hartman just had the stamina down the stretch. Gellert falls behind and loses by 4 seconds nearly.
Yeah, I mean, she holds a school record for Georgia in both 100 and 200 breaststrokes. And again, this is going to be an event for Georgia that I think you're going to see her a lot. Very well could see her competently in maybe the finals, consolation finals, as well in the NCAA championships once we get down, again, at her home swimming pool back in March.
Let's keep going. Here's one of the premier events, the 200-yard breaststroke for the men. And in lane 4, Leon Marchand. First turn, Marchand has the advantage. Moving now right to left. Marchand starting to pull away.
Now Marchand, of course, the dominant swimmer in this event last year. 1 NCAA gold, one of 3 different gold medals, just as the individual races for Marchand. Top times overall in the land, 146.91. His top time very well going to look to break it here in 2023.
25 seconds and change for him through that first touch. And boy, is he dominant. Another turn, this one at 54.48. Next closest is lane 8, Schillett at 56.25. So the Devils looking to take the top 2 spots in this.
Now, Schliff is going to be a guy, especially in this event, very well could see him in the NCAA championships. Never going to match up to Marchand, but a guy that will get you a lot of good points.
A serious chance for ASU to take all the points in this event. They have first locked up. They got second locked up. Looks like they may be able to lock up third relatively soon. And a push in the near lane from Cam Marder, trying to lock up fourth as well. Devils haven't had a clean sweep this weekend. And it's looking more and more likely they're going to get it here. Marchand, 154.39. In second is Schillett with 158.23. Desbronis at 159.95. Wow, what a dominant race from ASU. You'd expect it at the top of the ticket with a guy like Marchand, but great swimming in lane 8 with Schillett, and they take third as well.
Yeah, Schlicht overall, again, a guy that you're very well going to see in that far lane do very well for ASU. across multiple of these best events. Talk about Marchand, of how dominant that was. He was easily going to be in the top spot. He's still got more gears to go in this event itself, right? I mean, he was by far and wide, probably through the third turn, the favorite, and just easily seeing him going to be the top guy. He could probably go 8 seconds less on that one lone event. That's insane to even think about.
Terrific run by Marchand. Terrific race for the Devils. Let's keep it going. Event number 23, the 500-yard free for the women. Rachel Stege back in the pool for Georgia against Denise Orton. Lanes 5 and 4 respectively. Catherine Randall in lane 6 for ASU. And Abby McCullough in lane 3 with the Bulldogs. Early lead out of lane 5 for Georgia. Their number 1, Rachel Stege, in this race, ahead by just a touch. Another one of those races where Georgia clear and away the front runner. Right now they got first, second, and third locked up.
Now what looks to be possibly, if it stays as is with the current pace, maybe their 5th straight 1-2-3 sweep of the day, which is incredible to think about, and starts out a season that Georgia has high hopes for going on later on.
And you talk about that versus the men, where ASU just got a 1-2-3 sweep for pretty much the first time this weekend.
And so again, it's a deeper competition.
Oh, exactly.
On the men's side, of course, with Georgia. Georgia's going to be a top 15 team. I guarantee this season. I think we'll be top 5 inside of the SEC. The question mark for ASU, again, once you get into the back half of the year, once you get into the Pac-12s, how do you compete against Cal and Texas? How do you compete against the Floridas? How do you compete against the top dogs each and every single weekend? I really like the way Bob Bowman has set up this schedule this season, and essentially the same way that we saw last year, but going to see another double-style duel up against North Carolina State on October 20th and October 21st. We'll both have those here at Mona Plummer. But again, top competition. North Carolina State, again, also going to be a top 10 program, I think, this year on the men's side. And you go then later on, have that invite over there at North Carolina State and being able to have that same style. But again, the math is the bigger piece, right? You can only have so many people inside those each different events. Where do you divvy up your team in those invites to be able to top spot? Now, of course, out there in Greensboro, North Carolina, take the top spot on the men's side last year, and it taught a lot for this group of how to set up that team for those invites later on and help them out a lot in the Pac-12 championships.
148-59, your current score for the women in favor of Georgia. Not terribly close. And you can tell that based on the fact that 3 Georgia swimmers right now in lanes 3, 5, and 7 are seconds ahead of anybody from ASU.
Yeah, 3 spot, and Cootsie 3 seconds ahead. Reina in lane 2. Well, 4th overall is going to be a dominant free-running swim here for Georgia in this event.
The 500 free. Stege, the leader, touching down at 2:48.9. With McCullough right behind her at 2:49.63. And Coatsy at 2:56.1 in third. And that is likely how things will stay over the next couple of laps. Georgia has dominated this race and the meet. It's a good crowd for Parents Weekend here in Tempe. We mentioned the inaugural weekend of the season for both of these schools. Georgia next up against Georgia Tech on October 11th. ASU not back here for a little while, a couple of weeks before they have another meet at Mona Plummer against UNLV.
Yeah, the UNLV one would be fun. I think just kind of a reset, allow them to just have that true competition up against actual opponent outside of their own practice facilities that they're going to be able to have each and every single week. That's what was interesting talking to Bob Bowman about a lot last year. Is again, you breed this program to a point to where they start competing against each other in those different practices, just like you would out here in an actual event, and that's what pushes them so much. You talk about Marchand, other guys along this team pushing in so much in different style events. You see Max McCusker last year with one of the competition they had amongst him for a lot of his top spots in Grant House, Jack Dolan. He regarded those guys as one of the toughest competition he had. as you look at the other guys on a lot of different teams, you know some of them, you have the connection to some of them either through club events or outside of different events as well. You've seen them throughout the last couple of years. You are seeing this team each and every single day, so sometimes it's the best if you want to be better than the next guy right behind you, right next to you. That's been in the last 3 years that you've been here.
Georgia touches down first, second, and now third. Stagey wins it at 4:41.31. Then it's McCullough in lane 3 at 4:44.07, and Kotze at 4:46.97 in lane number 7. We get a clean sweep of first, second, and third in this race. They'll clear the pool, and we'll go to the men's 500-yard free. There'll be no swimmer for Georgia in lane 1 of that race. They only have 3. ASU will have 4. ASU swimming Patrick Sermon in lane 2, Daniel Matheson in lane 3, Julian Hill in lane 4, Dylan Gravely in lane 5. Off of the 500 free, Georgia has Bradley Dunham in lane number 3. Jake McGahee up the middle, been a star for this team already, even in this meet, in lane 5. And Tristan Denbrock in lane 7.
Even in lane 8, and probably not too much of an expectation for Dylan Gravely, a guy I think that's very interesting to talk about his story. Has majority of the time been kind of a triathlon athlete that's come out in a lot of the very much so, like not just 1650 but 5K type of races that we've seen. Another guy that's going to be part of the U.S. national team that will be able to go out and compete in the World Aquatics Championships in Fukuoka back in July. And compete in the men's 5K, 57:20. Finishing top 30 across the world, which is pretty incredible to see. Again, you see events like this of what he's able to do here against the top teams, top swimmers inside of the nation at the collegiate level, but kind of goes out to a different look, and how that extension really helps him is pretty cool to see.
Sun Devil triathlon among the best in the country.
I can't imagine myself doing what Gravely did again, 5K, and beforehand did a 10K in Budapest.
Wow.
I'm not doing that.
No?
I'm maybe AK, one, nothing past that.
Well, he did 10 of them.
Finished 13th.
5 of them right after. Yeah, to finish that high, you got to be fit. You gotta have the physical advantage there. Georgia has the physical advantage here. They lead this race in both first and second place. Bradley Dunham, the front runner in lane 3, trailed by his teammate in lane 5. That's Jake McGahee. So this has an opportunity to be one of the rare events that Georgia takes control of this weekend. ASU at this point likely to take at least third. See if anyone can catch McGahee for second.
Matheson looks to be the one right now that's trying to take up that one. And not a great turn coming around. Number 13 there, and has dropped down probably a whole leg.
And that may have locked up second for McGahee. 2 really good turns for Jake McGahee, and now second almost out of the question for ASU. 2 turns right there that just put him in second place, may even give him a chance to sprint for first down the stretch here.
The turns have not been good for Matheson. It seems like every single one he's having to come back out of the water and trying to make up time. He's probably been quicker simply out of the water, but the turns have just not been the same.
McGahee now ahead by a full length and closing in on lane number 3, his teammate Bradley Dunham. McGahee has now pulled just barely ahead of Dunham. How about that, Jake McGahee? Some really good turns in at 3:29.42 is Dunham. McGahee at 3:29.13, so he is just a touch of ahead of the guy that for the good portion of the first half of that race was in front by a lot.
And these final 150 yards, this is where you can tell what you are made of this kind of moment. How much more can you take out of your lungs? How much more can you push yourself to finally get that last little sprint out of you?
There's our bell. McGahee hears it. He's in front. Looks like his cap may not be fully on. I hadn't looked at it ahead of the race, but kind of looks like it may have started to slip off a little bit, but he doesn't care. He's going to win this thing heading away. 4:19.82. McGahee with a nice little comeback in the second half of that race. His teammate Dunham right behind him at 4:20.93.
Yeah, I think it was the turnaround. I was either 13 or 15 that he came around on this right side of the pool, turning around, just kind of flopped off a little bit as he was going, just kept kind of inch by inch fell off a little bit more. I mean, it's the cap's probably the least concerning part. The goggles, I've had an instance of going straight about halfway through 100 free to where you were coming right one turn and oh, they're gone. You have no idea where your eyesight's going.
You've swam the 100 free before?
A while back, but yes.
All right.
It was early high school action. It was not great. I was not a part of the team long.
There you go. The more you know. Nebraska state champion swimmer Jaden Taylor is with us.
No, not by a long shot. Not by an absolute long shot.
All right, let's go to the 100 fly for the women. If his goggles stayed on, maybe he'd be a state champion. We'll see.
Probably wouldn't help much. I was not great.
Nice tight race. In the 100 fly, Georgia just barely leading in lane number 3. This is Emma Norton. Or the Bulldogs. Lindsay Looney had a really good race. Last time we saw her, Elizabeth Tilt in lane 5 for the Bulldogs, starting to pull behind. It's going to be 3 and 4, Looney and Norton. And it looks like Looney's going to take it, 54-14. Over 54-9-4 from Folsky. But she will take second because Norton gets 54-03 to win it.
Just barely at the end. Looney.
Good race though.
Yeah, that final turn again was kind of a difference mark in lane 3. Norton just able to push ahead in the final around 15 yards. They finally pushed her way through just to barely take that number 1 spot.
Back to the men for the 100-yard butterfly. 134-92, not exactly a blowout in favor of the Devils. Georgia still not likely to catch up here, but it's a little bit closer, obviously, certainly compared to the women.
Yeah, it's been a dominant day on both ends. Has been really too much setup of overall team experience. We've seen some great races on both ends, but ASU look to easily take this dual meet second in 2 days. And great start of the year. You've kind of seen what this group can bring you. You've seen your top dogs in there, Marchand doing what he can do best. And now you come down to the final really more exciting ones that can finish off this entire weekend with a bang.
How about Illa Karud? He had a great race earlier, and he's having a great race now. Over a full length ahead. And he wins it at 44.88. His second first place finish of the day. The freshman coming up big in this meet.
And that's the depth that you can get there from your freshmen, from your newcomers. 3 different ASU swimmers qualified for this event last year. 2 of them graduated. So you're losing Max McCusker. You have Alex Colson, who's going to be another guy. But you bring in Ilya Karun, who has been known for his ability here in the butterfly, coming out in this great event. And I cannot wait to see what that young man can do throughout this year.
How about that? 44.88. Karun wins it by nearly 3 seconds. Georgia will finish in second in lane 2 with Colson at 47.38. We will go into our final break of the meet. This one not nearly as long as it was yesterday, a lot less events, but we will finish up with two big ones. When we come back with 200 IM and the 400 free relay. Last chance to see Leon Marchand today. The big events, you like closing it out with a relay. That's how we'll finish things up on the other side of this break.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I really like seeing, especially the 200-yard IM. I think that's the most anticipated event almost every single time that Leon Marchand is going to go out. He break the overall record, the top record that he has here at the NCAA level. What else can he do? Can you add on Hubert Kuss as well, who has been very good and has been very solid in this event as well. See where he can go throughout this year, and if he can find himself to maybe two different ASU swimmers getting top 5 in the NCAAs.
Let's take a break. Back in about 20 minutes for the final few events of this day. Arizona State leading on the men's side 150-95 and trailing on the women's side 174-71. Final couple of events here at the Mona Plummer Aquatics Center with Jaden Taylor. Aiden Blanc, good to be with you. Here on Pac-12 Plus, the Sun Devils have pretty much wrapped up a win on the men's side and will go 0-2 this weekend on the women's side, but still some more fun races, including another one for Leon Marchand. We'll start with the women's 200 IM. Here we go. Eva Maluka, lane 4 for the Devils. Zoe Hartman in lane 5 for UGA. Mia Abruzzo in another event for Georgia in lane 3. And Zoe Summer in lane 6 for ASU. Everybody swimming relatively even this first couple of legs.
Yeah, Aiden Maluka is going to be, I think, an interesting one to be able to watch for. He competed at the Tokyo Olympics back in 2021, both the 100 free as well as the 200 free. Now folding it up a little bit, showing up her backstroke ability. Hasn't been known too much for this. The freestyle is her main event that we've seen from her. Sophomore from Latvia, trying to find some sort of, you mentioned kind of spark for ASU these final 2 events on the women's side. What has comparatively been a disappointing weekend up against a very formidable Georgia squad.
Zoe Hartman leading Maluka at 55.63 to 55.96, so very tight as they prepare to make their final few turns. ASU has won just one event today. It's not been the most successful day, as Jaden mentioned, on the women's side. Could use a victory in one of these final events.
You're going to have here, and then you're going to end it off with the 400 freestyle relay. And we've already seen the freestyle been dominated by Georgia thus far.
Hartman's going to win it at 129.85, and Maluka right behind her at 131.45. Hartman well ahead. By almost a full length at this point. Maluka just chasing. She's swam very well in this race, but Hartman has just been that much better. 157.81. She wins it with Maluka coming in at 159.07. And another event that's dominated by the Dogs.
I will give it, though, to Aiden Maluka. A great split to end it off. Finally made a little bit of ground after losing it on the first turn before that. I think there is some promise for Aiden Maluka going forward, especially in some of these events working with the IM. But, seeing her as well as Lindsay leading these type of events will be very big, especially coming up against UNLV in 3 weeks.
Let's keep it going. 3 more events to go, and this will be the final in which we see Leon Marchand, the world champion, in lane number 4. Zach Hill's opposing him in lane 5 for Georgia. Clayton Wetstein in lane 3 for Georgia, and Hubert Koss in lane 6 for the Devils. Koss and Marchand have been a deadly duo.
And Marchand has owned this event the last couple of years here in the country. Top overall time in NCAA Division I, 136.34. You add on Koss as well, won the gold medal in this same event in the European Championships in Rome. But it's odd to say, again, you look at Hubert Koss, how good he can be at a professional level, at the international level, and then you're his teammates alongside a guy that's very arguably the best swimmer in the world in the best event for him.
More domination for Leon Marchand. Almost a full body length ahead of the competition, turning in 47.46 there. A full second ahead of Zach Hills at 48.90.
And you get into the breaststroke. Again, his best overall split that you're going to see from him. It's the best event that you're going to see overall, but ending it off to try to help this team out.
Marchand opening up his lead, heading into the final turn. His turns have been impeccable so far. They've really given him an advantage. Now over a full body length ahead. An undefeated weekend for Leon Marchand, 142-35, the winner of the 200 IM. Huber Koss will take second for the Devils at 144-29, so not to be outdone. And then Zach Hill's right behind him at 145-90, but Marchand will take off his cap. A heck of a debut weekend, and he'll get some applause, rightfully so. The world champion with a world champion's start to his collegiate season.
Yeah, it seems like it's a warm-up. Even for a group again, you're doing this year-round between world championships and coming here to the NCAA season. But again, Marchand's going to be the top guy all year long in this singular event, and it's really not a competition. I mean, the competition you're going to have for him is Huber Koss on his own team, but outside of that, there's not a ton of depth across the country, outside of Destin, Alaska, that's really going to push Marchand for that top spot.
Last event for the women, the 400 freestyle relay. Georgia leads 184-96. Devils just trying to get to triple digits. They got to get at least 4 points to do that. Maybe they need a second place finisher at the very minimum. Looks like they might have that. It's 4 and 6, looking pretty good for ASU so far in this relay. Lane 4's Aaron Milligan, Molly Batchelor, Lindsay Looney, and Eva Maluka. In lane 6, Charlie Brown, Vida Lundberg, Ellie Strom, and Indigo Armin. Lane 5, the lead so far for Georgia. That's Ebony McCarthy, Shea First, Helena Jones, and Sloan Weinstein. Kind of a best of. We've seen them all in individual events so far. And now we get to see them working together to close out this meet for the Bulldogs, who will almost certainly move up in the top 25 at the end of this weekend. Georgia leading, but ASU looking to lock down spots 2 and 3 and finish over 100 points on this final day of their inaugural meet of the season.
This final turn is going to be fun. Ava Maluka, Sloan Weinstein. Two that have been dominant in the freestyle, showing off here in just the early start of this season. Trying to end off with some sort of big points for a home crowd for ASU. They have the lead going into it.
Eva Maluka, Sloan Weinstein, and Indigo Armin all potentially looking to lock down a win for their teams. Lane number 4, that's Maluka. Her and Weinstein, the two early favorites, coming into the final spin. She's trying to make up ground, digging. And they turn again. Not a great turn for ASU. Maluka finds herself down by about half a length. Weinstein in front, trying to close out Georgia's dominant victory.
Another great turn there.
Those last 2 turns, she put it away. Sloan Weinstein will cruise on in. And now we're on to the final group. Bulldogs have opened this thing up on leg 3. And at this point, it's just a coronation for this Georgia relay team. Heading into the final turn, Sloan Weinstein over a full body length ahead of Eva Maluka and Indigo Armin, the two chasers for ASU, who at this point will probably be competing for second and third. Weinstein trying to open it up to multiple body lengths. Cruising on in to close out the match, and Georgia will finish with the win. 3:16.20, followed by 3:19.47. And 3:20.60, the top 3 times. Georgia A with 1, ASU A finishes second, and ASU B finishing in third. So the Devils will finish over 100 points. Not a terrible way to close it out. terrific throws for the Bulldogs. Was very close through the first two legs, but not in the last two.
And you mentioned Georgia overall going to be a team you'll see inside the top 25 this year. I think this really proved the depth they had on a lot of different levels. Ryan seen a great backup to end off that one. Helena Jones able to have some great turns that really pushed that one away. And you add on to Ebony McCarty to start it off. You're really going to see a lot of really solid swimmers for this Georgia female squad that is going to be a team I really think can compete at the top of the SEC championships.
Last event of the day. Let's go with the men's 400 freestyle relay. Let's do it. Only all 8 lanes being used. Thundering sounds into their second turn. ASU the early advantage in lane number 4. We don't have the Georgia names, but we've got Jack Dolan, Johnny Kulo, Patrick Salmon, and Ilya Karoom in lane 4. We should note in the 100-yard butterfly, Karoom set the school record with 44.88. He's won both the events he's faced today in just his second collegiate meet. Special things in his future, and right now his teammates trying to set him up to anchor out a double victory.
Yeah, Corona freshman from Las Vegas, Nevada, and again, Bob Bowen bringing in newcomers that are going to add in a spark. Ilya Corona has been dominant. Also had an incredible split earlier on in the 200 medley relay, and this is a guy again. You add on him, you add in Hubert Cause, you added so many solid pieces that are going to be developed well and diversified well across events. This is what brings together a national championship winning program.
We're on the second leg. Johnny Kulo's really opened things up for ASU's A team in lane 4. Georgia trying to take second at this point, but even ASU in front for that. In leg number 3, Pat Salmon for the Devils. And Ilya Karoom starts his warm-up. Karoom onto the blocks. His teammate Salmon just cruising ahead with the lead. Here we go. Into the pool. The new ASU record holder in the 100-yard butterfly.
ASU record holder for 400 free, 245.12. Last year in the NCAA championship, Kulo, Marchand, House, and Dolan. They've had to make up for the loss of House, and they've done it well with Ilya Karoom. A lot of options really go for this group.
They're not quite going to get the ASU record, but they'll be just a few seconds off. Karoom well ahead of the pack. And the Reds will close out this meet with a win. Just a few seconds back of the school record. 2:48.49. ASU's A team with a dominant victory to close things out.
And even their B group getting the second spot.
They will take second in the B group as well. And they will rectify last year's sweep in Athens with a sweep of their own in Tempe. 2-0. ASU will win the men's on the weekend. They'll go 0-2 in the women's, but for the men's, the #1 team in the nation certainly swam like it Friday and Saturday.
And it really didn't seem like this team has missed a beat. We saw the losses last year of Grant House, Max McCusker. You're going to see some other opportunity in this first half of this season. The long distance with Zalin Sarkani, but it really didn't seem like there's a loss there, but it's just been refueled by a lot of newcomers, some other guys that have gotten a lot better here in year number 2. Tyler Owen McDonald, the starter for ASU in the B group, and then Cam Peel ending it off, a guy that is an upperclassman here that probably hasn't gotten as much love throughout these last couple of years just because the dominant pieces that are still here. I love the way Jack Dolan raced here today. Not as many events that we saw that we'll probably see of him later on throughout this year, but started off that relay, and the grad student from St. Louis I think is going to be very good to be the veteran leader along with Leon Marchand in this group. Again, the younger core is going to be incredible. Johnny Kulo, just a sophomore at 19 years old, and again, added back to what was a Pac-12 Freshman of the Year campaign for him. And I think we want to see the front runner for the Pac-12 Freshman of the Year here in 2023. It's probably Ilya Kurun after an incredible day today.
See if we can get a final score here, but the Devils get the win. On the men's side, the women, certainly a lot of work to do, but a good and very tough opening weekend. I think that's kind of what probably should have been said coming into the weekend is, they weren't expected to win, they didn't, but they competed, and they've certainly laid a base for the rest of the season going forward.
That's an early test to see who's able to come out here and be the top dogs for this group. Lindsay Looney, again, is known to be in her spots. Banished a little bit more struggling date for her, as well as Milligan comparatively to her normal times, but I think kind of a refresher up against UNLV in 2 weeks' time, up against the Rebels on October 6th would be a good one to be able to see from them. And then they go to the really tough competition on October 20th and 21st up against North Carolina State. That's where we really get to the parts of the year to where you are really seeing who is the top dog in the land.
Next month alone, a meet against UNLV and 2 against NC State. All of those available on our live stream. And then you've got USC on November 4th to open up Pac-12 play. You'll also head to NC State for an invitational. They're on the road at Utah in November as well. Home against Grand Canyon to open up the new year. So really next month is where the majority of those home meets the rest of the year will come.
Yeah, it's kind of a flip from last year's. A lot of the away meets to start off the year, then really kind of came back here to Mona Plummer. But I cannot wait for the back half of the year as well. Once you get to the Pac-12 competition, easily, outside maybe the SEC, probably the top setup that you're going to be seeing of any different conference, and that match against Cal. It's always Cal. Right? It's always be able to see in Berkeley, to see those two teams back over there on January 20th and just after a day up against Stanford. So those are going to be the top 2 dual meets of the year, but I think ASU really likes to be able to see those as the last 2. Again, that is the testing point of, are you the number 1 team in the country? How do you prove yourself, and what do you need to change to best prepare yourself for NCAAs a month down the road?
Final scores today for the women: Georgia 184, ASU 111. For the men, ASU 183 and Georgia 117. The ASU men now 2-0. The Georgia women also 2-0. Our next ASU live stream October 5th. Sun Devil Soccer returning home to take on Washington on ASU live stream 1. Our next Swim and Dive live stream October 20th. The Sun Devils welcome NC State to the Mona Plummer Aquatic Center. For our stream team, production crew, and staff, for Jaden Taylor, our statistician Blake Neiman, our camera woman Grace Johnson, I'm Aiden Blanc saying so long from Tempe. ASU starts the season as the number 1 team in the nation on the men's side, and they win it 2-0 over the weekend as they take out Georgia. Good night, everybody.